Bosra is a town in southern Syria, administratively belonging to the Dara district of the Dara Governorate. According to the Syria Central Bureau of Statistics, Bosra had a population of 19,683 in the 2004 census. It is the administrative center of the Nahiyya of Bosra, which consisted of 9 localities with a collective population of 33,839 in 2004. Bosra's inhabitants are predominantly Sunni Muslims, although the town has a small Shia Muslim community. Bosra has an ancient history, and during the Roman era it was a prosperous provincial capital and metropolitan archbishopric, which became a Latin Catholic titular see and the episcopal see of Amalekite Archeparchy. It continued to be administratively important during the Islamic era, but became gradually less prominent during the Ottoman era. Today, it is a major archaeological site and has been declared by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site. History. The settlement was first mentioned in the documents of Thutmose III and Akhenaten. Bosra was the first Nabatean city in the 2nd century BC. The Nabatean kingdom was conquered by Cornelius Palma, a general of Trajan, in 106 AD. Roman and Byzantine era. Under the Roman Empire, Bosra was renamed Nova Trajana Bostra and was the residence of the Legia III Cyrenaica. It was made capital of the Roman province of Arabia Petraea. The city flourished and became a major metropolis at the juncture of several trade routes, namely the Via Traiana Nova, a Roman road that connected Damascus to the Red Sea. It became an important center for corn production, and during the reign of Emperor Philip the Arab, Bosra began to mint its own coins. The 2 councils of Arabia were held at Bosra in 246 and 247 AD. By the Byzantine period, which began in the 5th century, Christianity became the dominant religion in Bosra. The city became a metropolitan archbishop's seat and a large cathedral was built in the 6th century. Bosra was conquered by the Sassanid Persians in the early 7th century, but was recaptured during a Byzantine reconquest. Islamic era. Bosra played an important part in the early life of the Islamic prophet Muhammad, as described in the entry for the Christian monk Bahira. The forces of the Rashid-un Caliphate under General Khalid ibn Walid captured the city from the Byzantines in the Battle of Bosra in 634. Throughout Islamic rule, Bosra would serve as the southernmost outpost of Damascus, its prosperity being mostly contingent on the political importance of that city. Bosra held additional significance as a center of the pilgrim caravan between Damascus and the Muslim holy cities of Mecca and Medina, the destinations of the annual Hajj pilgrimage. Early Islamic rule did not alter the general architecture of Bosra, with only 2 structures dating to the Umayyad era when Damascus was the capital of the Caliphate. Bosra's inhabitants gradually converted to Islam, and as they proselytized, the Roman-era holy sites were utilized for Muslim use. In the 9th century, Aguba wrote that Bosra was the capital of the Hauran province. After the end of the Umayyad era in 750, major activity in Bosra ceased for around 300 years until the late 11th century. In the last years of Fatimid rule, in 1068, a number of building projects were commissioned. With the advent of Seljuk rule in 1076, increasing focus was paid to Bosra's defences. In particular, the Roman theatre was transformed into a fortress, with a new floor added to the interior staircase tower. With the coming to power of the Burai dynasty in Damascus, the general Kumushtaqan was allotted the entire Hauran plain as a fief by the Atabeg Tutakan. Under Kumushtaqan, efforts to enhance the Muslim nature of the city increased with the construction of a number of Islamic edifices. Of these projects was the restoration of the Umari Mosque, which had been built by the Umayyad in 721. Another mosque commissioned was the smaller Al-Khidr Mosque built at the northwestern part of the city, which was established under Kumushtaqan. In 1134, Qumashtakan also had a madrasa constructed alongside the Muslim shrine honoring the Mabrak in Naqa, which marked the imprints of the camel the Prophet Muhammad rode on when he entered Bosra in the early 7th century. A golden age of political and architectural activity in Bosra began during the reign of Ayyubid Sultan al-Adil. One of the first architectural developments in the city was the construction of 8 large external towers in the Roman theatre-turned-fortress. The project began in 1202 and were completed in 1253, towards the end of the Ayyubid period. The 2 northern corner towers alone occupied more space than the remaining 6. After al-Adil's death in 1218, his son As-Saleh Ismail inherited the fief of Bosra, who resided in its newly fortified citadel. During Ismail's rule, Bosra gained political prominence. Ismail used the city as his base when he claimed the Sultanate in Damascus on 2 separate occasions, reigning between 1237–38 and 1239–45. Ottoman Era. In 1596, Bosra appeared in the Ottoman tax registers as Nafs Busra, being part of the Nahiyya of Badi Nasir in the Qada of Hauran. It had a Muslim population consisting of 75 households and 27 bachelors, and a Christian population of 15 households and 8 bachelors. Taxes were paid on wheat, barley, summer crops, fruit or other trees, goats or beehives and water mill. Modern era. Today, Bosra is a major archaeological site, containing ruins from Roman, Byzantine, and Muslim times. Its main feature being the well-preserved Roman theatre. Every year there is a national music festival hosted in the main theatre. Significant social and economic changes have affected Bosra since the end of the French Mandate in 1946. While up until the 1950s the shopkeepers of Bosra were from Damascus, since then most shop owners are residents of the town. In the late Ottoman era and the French Mandate period, the agricultural relationship was between the small landowner and the sharecroppers. Since agrarian reforms in the late 1950s and 1960s, the relevant relationship has been between the landowners and the wage laborers. Many of its residents have found work in the Persian Gulf states and Saudi Arabia, sending proceeds to their relatives in Bosra. Social changes together with increased access to education have largely diminished the traditional clan life, according to historian Hannah Batachu. During the presidency of Hafez al-Assad, Bosra and the surrounding villages were left largely outside of government interference and, for the most part, are politically dominated by members the prominent al-Miqdad clan, who serve as a sort of intermediary between the residents of the town on one hand, and the governor of Daraa and the Baath party branch secretary on the other. On October 14, 2012, there were intense gunfire from regime forces stationed at checkpoints on the main road running through the town. On 13 November 2012, fierce fighting has been reported in the east side of the town. By January 2013, after 22 months of conflict amid the ongoing Syrian civil war, some refugees fleeing Bosra spoke of ever-escalating violence, with many bodies being left in the streets during the violence. On 15 January 2013, it was reported that the citadel was used by the army on a daily basis to shell the town. Since the beginning of February 2014, the city was under the control of the Syrian army. However, on 31 January 2015, the Army's 5th Division confronted a contingent from the rebels near the famous Roman amphitheatre. Fierce firefights broke out between the groups. On 1 February 2015, the regime forces shelled areas in the eastern neighborhood of the town. On 25 March 2015, Syrian rebels seized the town, ousting Syrian soldiers and allied militiamen after 4 days of intense battle. Ecclesiastical History. As capital of the late Roman province of Arabia Petraea, Bosra was its metropolitan archbishopric. The Latin apostolic succession was ended, but the city was made eponymous of the Melkite Catholic Archieparchy of Bosra Hauran, which has its actual Marian cathedral see in Kabab city. Titular see the Latin archdiocese was nominally restored as a Latin metropolitan titular archbishopric in the 18th century. It is vacant for decades, having had the following archiepiscopal incumbents: Giuseppe Maria Peri Mezzi, Marists; Dominicus Arcaroli; Domenico Secondi, Conventual Franciscans; Francisco de Paul Garcia Pelaez; Walter Steins Bishop, S.J. Vincenzo Taglialatella; Francisco Sáenz de Urturi y Crespo, Friars Minor; Martin Garcia y Alcázar, OFM; Peter Joseph Hirth, Holy Cross Fathers; Ioannis Gandour; John Patrick Cody as Coadjutor Archbishop of New Orleans, succeeded as Metropolitan Archbishop of New Orleans. Transferred Metropolitan Archbishop of Chicago, created Cardinal Priest of S. Cecilia. Ioannis Georges Saint-Acute. Main sites of the city, which once counted 80,000 inhabitants, there remains today only a village settled among the ruins. The 2nd century Roman theatre, constructed probably under Trajan, is the only monument of this type with its upper gallery in the form of a covered portico which has been integrally preserved. It was fortified between 481 and 1231. Further, Nabatean and Roman monuments, Christian churches, mosques and madrasas are present within the half-ruined encinta of the city. The structure of this monument, a central plan with eastern apses flanked by 2 sacristies, exerted a decisive influence on the evolution of Christian architectural forms, and to a certain extent on Islamic style. Al-Omari Mosque of Bosra is one of the oldest surviving mosques in Islamic history. Close by are the Karabagh Bridge and the Jemerin Bridge, both Roman bridges. Demographics. In the late 1990s, Bosra had an estimated population of 12,000. Its population increased to 19,683 according to the 2004 census by the Syria Central Bureau of Statistics. The population of its metropolitan area was 33,839. Bosra's inhabitants are predominantly Sunni Muslims and are mostly divided between 8 major clans. The leading clan is the Al-Muqdad, whose members immigrated to Bosra from Al-Suwaydeh in the mid-18th century. During this era they also dominated the nearby villages of Ghasm, Maraba and Samakiyat. However, the oldest clan of Bosra are the Hamd, a largely fair-skinned people, many members of which have blonde hair and blue eyes. They claim to be descendants of the ancient Roman governor of Bosra, although the townspeople believe they are of Crusader origins. Regarding land ownership, the Hamd clan owns around 1,000 hectares in the town while the Al-Muqdad clan owns roughly 12,000. The latter's members were historically influential in the Hauran region and beyond, having had one of their own in the Ottoman Parliament of Abd al-Hamid II in Constantinople during the Young Turks period and in the Syrian Parliament during the French Mandate period. As of the late 1990s, members of the Al-Muqdad clan occupied the positions of mayor, the chief imam of the main Al-Omari Mosque, the chief of the town's Bureau of Antiquities as well as manager of Bosra's carpet workshop and the owner of the principal coffee house. While their members traditionally resided in the eastern quarter of Old Bosra, they are currently prevalent throughout the town. Bosra also has a small Shia Muslim community of some 50 families. According to Palestinian-American historian Hannah Batachu, the Shia inhabitants of Bosra were relatively recent arrivals, and immigrated to the town from the city of Nabateeh in South Lebanon. Most of the working members of the Shia community are artisans or laborers. Batatu also asserts that social changes in Bosra since Syrian independence have led to tribal diffusion, with intermarriage between the clans and between the Sunni and Shia communities having increased significantly. Notable people from Bosra: Simon ben Lachish, 3rd century, a Moor of the 2nd generation and Rabbi. Titus of Bostra, Florida, 4th century, Christian theologian. Saint Antipater of Bostra, Florida, 5th century, Christian bishop. Bahira, 600, Assyrian monk. Ibn Kathir, Islamic scholar. Bibliography: Batachu, Hannah. Syria's peasantry, the descendants of its lesser rural notables, and the politics. Princeton University Press. ISBN 0691002541. Hutteroth, Wolf Dieter, Abdul Fattah, Kamal. Historical Geography of Palestine, Transjordan and Southern Syria in the late 16th century. Erlanger Geographische Arbeiten, Sonderband 5. Erlangen, Germany. Vorstand der Frankischen Geographischen Gesellschaft. ISBN 3-92040541-2. Meinecker, Michael. Patterns of Stylistic Changes in Islamic Architecture. Local Traditions versus Migrating Artists. New York University Press. ISBN 9780814754924. Strange, La, Guy. Palestine under the Muslims. A Description of Syria and the Holy Land from AD 650 to 1500. Committee of the Palestine Exploration Fund.